Ayy, look, ayy. I'm in the lab like Dexter, brand new batch he tested. I'm with all the extras, don't try and bitch, I'm pressure. I'm the type to step on steppers, I'm the type to step on steppers. I'm the type to step on steppers, I'm the type to step on steppers.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the New Media Podcast. I'm your host, Ya. We hope you enjoyed the last episode because, as always, today's going to be an even better episode. I got the whole crew with me. Everybody's in the house today. And today, of course, as always, we're going to be doing a Week 6 recap. We'll be having a little bit of a discussion about the New York Jets and whether or not they still have hope left in their season after getting a very big win in Philly or against Philly. We'll also talk about the Cincinnati Bengals and are they officially back? And then we'll talk about the Dallas Cowboys. How impressive was their win on Monday night, coming off a very, very embarrassing loss to the Niners on primetime on Sunday night last week. Are we also buying the Detroit Lions 5-1 start to the season? And then we have our very first NFL edition start bench cut. And then, of course, we'll go ahead and wrap it up with the Week 7 pick-em predictions. But, of course, before we jump into all of that, temperature check, how's everybody doing?
Feels good to get off bye. You know, your team was reeling off a couple losses in a row, so feels good to come out of the bye and now, get right back to it.
Did you win this week, Big H? It was just us. It was just us at the table. Abdi was on a bye. I just want to know if you're at the winner's circle.
We didn't make it to the circle this weekend.
It's fair.
Disappointing week, you know what I'm saying? Very disappointed in this offense, man. Very, very disappointed in this offense. Very slow. We got to the end zone like 6 times, threw a pick, 2 fourth downs we couldn't convert. Actually, 3. It was just embarrassing on the offensive side of the ball. We trusted our defense. Second half, they showed up. We clamped up. We locked up. But then there's Geno. I blame 50 on Geno, blame 50% on the offensive line. It's possible we could have won this game by a lot of points, but the inconsistency on the offensive side of the ball, we got to fix up on that.
Yeah, man. Overall, another good week of football. My team ended up getting a win against the Justin Fields-less Chicago Bears. I'm not too sure how impressive that win is, but a win is a win. I was hoping we weren't going to win, but at the end of the day, can't control all the factors that go into the game. No Justin Fields. I think their backup quarterback, I don't even know his name, Tyler Bagent or something like that. But looking forward to talking about it all, and let's go ahead and jump right into it. The New York Jets had a very, very big game, very, very tough matchup against the Philadelphia Eagles, a team that went to the Super Bowl last year. And they were able to come out on the right side of things this week, forcing Jalen Hurts to throw 3 interceptions, and they ended up winning this game 20-14. I think they held the Philadelphia Eagles scoreless in the second half. Phenomenal game from the New York Jets defense once again, keeping this team afloat, keeping this team alive so far. With the 3-3 record, I believe they're going into their bye week this week. How much hope do the New York Jets have to save their season?
I think, again, this, like Robert Saleh said, these guys have faced a gauntlet of quarterbacks. They've gone through Jalen Hurts, they've gone through Mahomes, they've gone through Josh Allen, and each one of those guys they've held up against them and performed. Jalen Hurts, up until the third quarter, I think till the third quarter he was playing a relatively good game, and then that fourth quarter is where the Jets defense really started digging in and locking up. And that last interception that he had, it just sums up how good this defense is. When they go up against elite quarterbacks, they perform week in and week out. And Zach Wilson's starting to grow into these games a bit. I'm not sitting here and telling you that he's going to be a world beater or any of that sort, but Zach Wilson's starting to get his feet wet. He's starting to figure things out. He's getting a little bit more comfortable. And for him, I think Robert Saleh is essentially just trying to protect the ball, trying to take his shots where he can, just start to form that connection with Garrett Wilson, build some rapport between each other and try to build off of that, and then rely on the running game. With Breece Hall's training wheels off, he's going to get more and more comfortable as the weeks go by. He's looking explosive every single time. He's ripping off runs. And, if this team's able to just rely on their defense and rely on their run game and, their play action passing to Zach Wilson and taking their chances here and there, I think they can hold out. There's reports of Rodgers rushing to make a comeback. He's already throwing the football. We'll have to wait and see. Achilles injuries for a guy of that age it's unprecedented to be able to come back that quick. But at the same time, this team, they're grit and grind. They fight, week in and week out. And to go up against those level of quarterbacks and essentially embarrass them, I think is a testament to how good this defense is and how much they can keep afloat. So we'll just have to wait and see.
Is there hope for the Jets this season? I want to say Super Bowl hopes, but they're going on a good pathway. I feel like the team's heading on the right direction. Obviously losing Aaron Rodgers, they brought him in to up their chances and make the playoffs and have a chance to make the Super Bowl. Rodgers, but to each his own. Injuries happen. You can't do nothing about that. Although Rodgers looks like he's coming back faster than ever. He might come back in due time, sometime maybe at the end of the season, maybe during playoffs. But for them right now, I feel like they're clicking perfectly well, especially on the defensive side of the ball. They're on all edges. They're missed I think 4 of the 5 of their starting corners. Their first 5 corners were out of the game. They had some guys off the practice squad, and I think they had one guy that was already on the team, and those guys came in locked in. And that, you gotta give credit to Salah. He had guys come in that wasn't practicing a lot, was third, fourth string options, and they came in and hooped. They played fantastic. And then offensively, Zach Wilson's gaining that confidence slowly and slowly. Brees Hall's here. They finally took the training wheels off. He had a phenomenal past 2 to 3 weeks. I think actually 2 weeks against the Broncos, and the past week I forgot who they played. If I'm not too, they played the Eagles. Yeah, he had great 2 weeks, and Zach Wilson's gaining his confidence. Slowly and surely, he's not making that much mistakes. He's getting the ball a lot quicker. He's finding now his number 1 target, Garrett Wilson, and these things are going to add up, and these things are going to make this team more of a collective team. So for them to work like this and go through this, they're going to just be much tighter group next season, man. If Rodgers does come back 100% healthy, just to add him to that mix, they're going to be a scary team. But for this year, I don't see Super Bowl hopes, but maybe they fight for a playoff spot because this defense is phenomenal, and I can see that happening, especially back in the run game and even in the divisional games. Man, they can be. It's close with Zach Wilson, and one or two things that Zach Wilson's better at, they can win a couple more games. So we'll see what happens, but they got a nice team, and they got a very young team too.
I think the New York Jets have started to realize that there's no situational change at the quarterback position that they can make to boost, to get better at that position and move on from Zach Wilson. So I think as of right now, they're just really buying into what they got with Zach Wilson, just trying to, the defense will always keep these guys in games. To go to play the Philadelphia Eagles without Sauce, without DJ Reed, it's like, you're not really expecting to go and win that game. You're expecting the Philadelphia Eagles to tear them apart with their weapons like A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. But to go ahead and win this game, and Zach Wilson didn't necessarily have the greatest game, but the thing is he's not turning over the ball, and that's what's helping this team a lot. He's not forcing the defense to get back on the field a lot quicker than normal. And so I think the players right now, they're rallying behind their defense, but they're also rallying behind Zach Wilson at the same time, just understanding that they're not going to get anything better at the quarterback position in the market right now, whoever's available. They understand that Aaron Rodgers at best is going to come back if they make the playoffs. I think at some point, if these guys somehow, some way end up making the wild card spot, I think Aaron Rodgers might just give it a shot with what he's got. I think, with the way his rehab has been going, walking. So he's walking, but it's, gingerly, but still walking a couple of weeks, 4 or 5 weeks, 6 weeks removed from surgery. That's very, very impressive. But, right now, it's interesting to see, how their defense has been playing, but I'm just very, very curious to see how their team as a whole is going to look when it's not, when their defense isn't necessarily the one that's winning them these games. Forcing Jalen Hurts to throw these interceptions, and obviously Brees Hall getting a cakewalk into the end zone to win the game. But at the end of the day, they forced their defense to come back out and get a stop. I want to see the New York Jets offense, really win a game convincingly. And I feel like, obviously they did that against. Kind of done that a little bit against the Broncos, but everybody could beat the Broncos. I want to see these guys do it against some contenders. But, I'm looking at their schedule right now. I know they go into a week 7 bye, looking to regroup. Coming out of that bye, it's a pretty interesting schedule for the rest of the way. Their first game back from that bye is on the road against the New York Giants. I still think it's a very, very winnable game. Then they have another home game against the LA Chargers, primetime game. I feel like there's some potential there with the way the Chargers have been playing. Then you have the Vegas Raiders. You have Buffalo one more time. You have Miami twice still. But there's still some winnable games on the schedule. They have Atlanta. They have Houston. They have Washington. They have New England still left on the schedule. So, it's going to be interesting to see how the New York Jets pan out. For their hopes, I think it's still very slim at this point. I know starting off the season 3-3 going into week 7 bye is a very good spot you want to be in. But the AFC is just very, very competitive. There's a lot of teams right now that are sitting at a 3-3 record. When I look at it, obviously you have the Indianapolis Colts, you have the Houston Texans, you have the Las Vegas Raiders. Surprisingly, Cincinnati Bengals are right there. So it's just very, very competitive in the AFC as a whole. So for the New York Jets, they're going to be special defensively. I have no issues on that side, but on offense, they're going to have to be even better than what they are so far. And I'm not too sure. I can't sit here and confidently say, that the New York Jets will just continue to get better. But what I've been seeing so far these first 6 weeks without Aaron Rodgers has been very, very impressive. Trying to get wins where they can and really just relying heavily on their defense. But this last win against Philly was obviously the most impressive one because you're going in with no Sauce and you're going in with no Reed. It's going to be a tough day for your second string and your third string corners to contain those guys. And obviously AJ Brown had himself a hell of a day. Philadelphia Eagles, I feel like, maybe in a couple of weeks down the line, we're gonna have to have a conversation about this team and how the way Jalen Hurts has been playing. But I guess we're just gonna have to wait and see on that. Aside from all of that, let's go ahead and move on to the Cincinnati Bengals. Very, very big game this past week. Going up against the Seattle Seahawks coming off their bye week. The Bengals have reeled off a couple of wins from Monday night, beating a team like the Los Angeles Rams. And I think they lost the following week after that. But coming back, winning in convincing fashion against the Cardinals. This is going to be their very, very toughest test so far since, Joe Burrow's ramped up and he's trying to play on that calf injury. They were able to win 17-13, but I'm not too sure if I'm convinced that these guys are officially back. But are the Bengals officially back? Can we confidently say that?
I don't know confidently, but I do feel like Joe Burrow's trending in the right direction in terms of his health. I think, the week before, of course, they played the Cardinals, and I think overall his mobility and his overall throwing aspect of things, I think he looked phenomenal. And that's kind of the Joe Burrow that we're accustomed to. And in this game, in the second half, a lot things kind of slowed down heavily. Seattle's defense kind of locked in on that side of the ball. But overall, I do think Joe Burrow's trending in the right direction, and that's what determines if the Bengals are back. Jamar Chase is, of course, he's always going to be open. He's always going to put himself in the best spots to compete. And then you have T. Higgins, who's, he's had a slow start to the season, but that's kind of coincided with Joe Burrow's health and his play. And I think when Joe Burrow is healthy, and I do think that he's trending that direction, I think that the Bengals can be officially back. Sitting at 3-3, we thought it was doom and gloom, when they started off the season. Now they've kind of reeled off a couple wins in a row, and the offense has been trending in the right direction. So I don't want to officially say that they're back, but I do think they are heading towards the right direction.
I wouldn't say the team is heading towards the right direction. I agree with you on the Joe Burrow side. I feel like Joe Burrow is getting more healthier against us. First half he was getting out the pocket. He looked a little more fluid. He looked a little bit, more mobile. But second half, to me, the offense, you can't just disappear. It's still the same offense that's been going on. Slow offense, same things. It's the same Zach Taylor offense that we've seen the past 6 weeks. It's the same thing going on. They can't get the ball down the field. They run the same plays. They really can't run the ball. There's not much going on the offensive side of the ball. To say their offense is heading towards the right direction, 180 yards from Joe Burrow, 30 yards rushing from Mixon. I got to see more from the offensive side of the ball to say they're really back. They squeezed out some W's. I give them that. Some close games. They want some, some good games. But I need to see that offense come out. I need to see Burrow with a 350-yard, 4-touchdown game where he, solid playing lights out, where T. Higgins is involved, where Mixon's involved, where Jamar Chase is involved. What we've seen last year and the year before when they went to the Super Bowl. That's the type of offense that I want to see. Their defense has been playing phenomenal this year. Even with a lot of pieces missing that they lost in free agency, a couple of these guys that stepped up and came to the team have been performing. So for me, I feel like, the offense got to show a little bit more. I feel like it's going to determine that the next couple of weeks after this bye week. I'm sure that, Joe Burrow's going to get more healthy. T. Higgins is going to get more healthy. And we'll see after this bye week, how they come back. But to me, still, this outing in Seattle, it didn't show much.
If we're basing the game off the first half alone, or just those first quarter, I want to say, I would probably say for about for a quarter, they look pretty good. I thought this game had a lot of potential, going into it. I think Kenneth Walker scored the first touchdown for Seattle, then the Bengals go on a long little drive and respond as well. But ended up being a true defensive battle with the way the score ended up. But I'm not going to sit here and confidently say, that these guys are back. Offensively, they can't run the ball. I think Mixon is a shell of himself. This will definitely be his last year. I know he restructured his deal to stick around a little longer for this year, understanding that this is a Super Bowl roster, led by Joe Burrow and all the weapons around him. But they can't run the ball, and they haven't been able to run the ball this entire season. That's been an issue. And I feel like if you want to get to where you want to go, which is winning a Super Bowl, you got to be able to move the chains on the ground, and they can't necessarily do that. And, for Joe Burrow to finish this game with 185 yards, completing 68% of his passes, it's nice, for the pass completion percentage, but for the yards and the touchdowns to interception ratio, it's not really too impressive. Nothing really stands out to me, to make me sit here and say that these guys are officially back. It's going to be interesting to see how they come off their bye. That game against Arizona is not something I can just sit here and confidently say, that was great as well. Obviously, they put on a nice little show, but it's against the Arizona Cardinals. That's a team that's going to be competing for, the number one pick in the draft. Coming out of their bye, though, depending on how healthy Joe Burrow is, it's going to be really, really tough for him those first couple of weeks. They have to go on the road to play the San Francisco 49ers, and then they have to follow that up with a game on Sunday night against the Buffalo Bills. So, those will be the two, tests that'll determine whether or not these guys are officially back. If they're able to, at least go 1-on-1 at worst, but offensively still not, look like the Cincinnati Bengals that we're accustomed to seeing, then I can come back here and say that, okay, the Bengals will be just fine. If they ended up just playing those two games, going 4-4, that's it is what it is. You're playing two tough teams. It's kind of tough to go 2-0 against those type of teams. But even if they go 1-on-1 and their offense is still looking shaky to me, then I think I'm going to have to be officially out on these guys for the rest of the season, because I just can't see these guys, turning the corner, reeling off a lot of wins with their offensive firepower, how we're accustomed to seeing. So for me, I'm going to pump the brakes a little bit. It's good to see the Bengals getting back on track, obviously, after starting off 0-2 to start the year. But overall, I can't confidently say that they're back yet. But these next couple of weeks post their bye will definitely be the test, the litmus test for me. But before we move off from the Cincinnati Bengals and the Seattle Seahawks matchup, Big H, you guaranteed a win, man. I want to hear your thoughts before we move off from this game, man. I thought Jamar Chase was going to get clamped. I thought you guys were going to come in here. You guys did a good job clamping T. Higgins, though. I'll give you that.
Witherspoon clamped him. Locked him up. You know what I'm saying? He got so mad that he came onto Seattle's personal Instagram page, on a post to put laughing emojis. Like, you that down bad that it got to your head that a rookie clamped you, that you had to go to our personal page. Yeah, I feel like we did a good job on Jamar Chase, but I feel like offensively, man, I can't guarantee some stuff. Geno Smith, missed some opportunities. I feel like this time he was holding on to the ball. He missed some wide open players. There's, one play, what's his face? JSN was open on the sideline that we could have, in the fourth quarter, we could put into the end zone wide open by himself, but he decided to run the ball up the gut. Gained us, got us a first down, 17 yards, but a lot of guarantees in life, and winning football games is not one of them.
Would you say you're disappointed, though, with the way you guys came out? I mean, coming off a bye, shouldn't you be more prepared than any team?
The thing is, like, we came out, I felt like we came out hot. They came out, they scored, we came out, we scored. Game was going good, and it just slowed down for us. I don't know what happened. Like, we would get to the 30 or 40, or we get to the end zone and empty drives, or it'd be a field goal, or it'd be another empty drive, and be another empty drive. And that time it's just getting frustrated. It's just frustration, and then you end up with 2 picks, even more frustration there. And it's like, you add that to the turnovers, 5 drives in the end zone. Everything went wrong on the offensive side of the ball. It didn't look good at all. I feel like, a couple players coming back in the O-line should have helped us, but guess not.
You still on the Geno Smith hype train?
Of course. 100%. There's a couple mistakes from the online, couple mistakes from him that can get fixed up. But like,
those are some tough interceptions, though. Those are some interceptions in a very bad spot.
Tough interceptions. Like I said, that game, it was Geno holding the ball too much and him making too much mistakes, and and the online not holding up a lot. So I got to put the blame on those two, and I feel like Geno got to lock in. He got to step up. This season so far been up and down. Offensively, it's just been very inconsistent. So you got to find that consistency that works with our defense very well, and I feel like we're going to string some W's together.
luckily for yourself, you have a get right week against the Arizona Cardinals, so that
Much
should be
needed.
interesting. Much
But
needed win
divisional
there.
game, I'm not gonna say we guarantee a W on that one.
Fair enough. Let's go ahead and move on to the Dallas Cowboys. Last week, Big H specifically, you hinted at a conversation that needed to be held about this team after getting obliterated on Sunday night. I told you, let's pump the brakes. Let's give this team one more chance to prove themselves on Monday night, another primetime game, all the lights on them. And Dallas Cowboys were able to win this game on Monday night, 20-17. Everything that went on during the week, after getting embarrassed, being the talk of the media, everybody was talking about the Dallas Cowboys, America's team. Dak Prescott this, Dak Prescott that. These guys were somehow, some way able to win this game on Monday night on the road. Another primetime game. In front of the world. But how impressive was this win for the Dallas Cowboys for you guys?
I think it's a good win for them, 100%. It's a much needed win against obviously a Chargers offense that's really good, led by quarterback Justin Herbert. But when we look at the Dallas Cowboys, I mean, like they came out this season, talking about they're a contender. 3 weeks into the season, their defense is red hot. They're blowing out teams, they're clamping teams, they're going to work. And then you get your chance to go up against the San Francisco 49ers, to display like, we can go up with the best of them. We can go toe-to-toe with the Niners, you can go toe-to-toe with the Eagles. And then you get thoroughly embarrassed. I don't think there's a way that you can bounce back in a manner unless you played at a similar level of a team. If they had played the Eagles, if they had played the Chiefs, if they had played the Bills, and they had bounced back against them, then I think people would, be more akin to saying, yeah, I think they made a statement. But I'm not looking at this game like the Dallas Cowboys made a statement. I still have reservations about their team. I think Dak Prescott had one of his best games of the season, and he was still plagued by drops by Michael Gallup. He had a couple of plays where if he makes that throw a little bit better to Tony Pollard, maybe that's a touchdown. But other than that, I think Dak had a really good game. Overall, when I look at this Cowboys team, I'm still not, sold onto them, especially, after losing their star corner, Trevon Diggs. Stephon Gilmore, I'm not too bought in with him. And a lot of their defense, they didn't even get up until that Michael Parsons sack. They didn't even get a sack on Justin Herbert all night. So I'm not 100% totally convinced by this Dallas Cowboys team. And I don't think I'm looking at this one like, I'm super impressed by it. I think it's a very good win against a team like the Chargers, but I'm not looking at it like I'm so impressed because just a week before they got their chest kicked in. So we'll just have to see.
Yeah, man. I love it's the same cycle we see with the Cowboys every single year. You know what I'm saying? They punk on these, suck butt teams the first 3 weeks. Then week 4 comes around, they get their butt kicked. Week five might be a bye. Week 6 they come back. It's a decent team they play and they win by 3 or 4 points. And then everybody be like, oh, the Cowboys are a contender. They beat the Chargers. They're back. There should be a top team that can, play with the Niners, the Eagles, the Bills, the Chiefs. Hey, kudos to them. They won the game. But to me, defensively, they still have an issue. I feel like defensively, Michael Parsons has been a shell of himself since last year. Yeah, I feel like he's been getting to the quarterback on some pressures, but he hasn't been getting the sacks. He hasn't been getting the tackle for losses in the backfield. He's been losing his one-on-one matchups with the left tackles and the right tackles. To me, it's been a very slow start for him. And, some of the guys on the defensive side of the ball, they picked up. Deron Bland, he played fantastic for them. Gilmore had a big interception late drive. Parsons, again, he did show up with that sack. But to me, they're still a team that they're still mid of the pack. They beat a mid of a pack team, and I don't see them contending. Dak had a great game, obviously. Felt like it was forced for him to pass the ball to CD, to get CD open in the beginning of the game, to start force feeding him to, disturb the defense. And that's what they did. I feel like, CD has to be that number one guy. He has to get 10 to 15 targets. He got to eat. They got to double team him and get other guys open. Brandon Cook had a good game. Tony Pollard had a good game. So it was all collective effort. But, to me, you beat up a mid-pack team. Chargers, they have a lot of issues on their side of the ball. Herbert, there's a couple plays, couple mistakes that he had that, could have turned for touchdowns or, if he kept the ball, he didn't throw that. A couple of these interceptions were just horrible from him. And the missed balls that he had towards his receivers and stuff like that can't happen, cannot happen. So for me, good. I'll say good one for the Cowboys, but not a contending team to me. They're still middle of the table.
Well, we'll definitely get to Justin Herbert in a little bit, but
yeah, we'll talk about Herbert though.
We'll talk about Herbert for sure. But to get back to the Dallas Cowboys, man, I think this is very, very impressive. I can't lie, because number one, obviously you get your chest kicked in by the Niners on primetime Sunday night, and things don't get easier necessarily. You're playing a team that's coming off a bye on primetime again on Monday night with all the eyes watching, and so there's so much added pressure for the Dallas Cowboys to perform, and there was just so much pressure for these guys to come out and get a W, regardless of how it looked. Um, Defensively, they're phenomenal. Obviously they held the Los Angeles Chargers to less than 17 points, and the defense made some key stops on fourth down, and they made some big plays down the stretch. But in the end, this game really came down on the shoulders of Dak Prescott, and Dak Prescott is a guy that you guys give a lot of flack to, a lot of hate to, and he needed to go out there and win this game. And I feel like this guy, although he only threw one passing touchdown, I would say he had a very, very great game. I think good would be an understatement. Obviously we've been asking from Dak Prescott to go out there to win a game on his own, on his shoulders, and I think he did that this game. Obviously going for 21 for 30, completing 70% of his passes, 272 and a touchdown. He also rushed for a touchdown. He was a lot more aggressive running the ball as being a rusher. 7 carries, 40 yards and a touchdown as well. So I think overall this was a very, very great win for the Cowboys and a well-needed win. Obviously, regardless of the opponent, when you come off a bad loss like that, a very embarrassing loss like that, you want the next game to be the very next day. You want to get back out there as soon as possible to get that sour taste out of your mouth. And I feel like the Dallas Cowboys, to go into Los Angeles to play a team that was coming off their bye, a team that was well prepared, a team that was healthy, and to get a very convincing win, I want to say, they got back on track. This is all that they needed to do. They just needed to get back on track. They needed to get back on the horse. Now they sit with the record of 4-2 going into their bye week. And I feel like that's not necessarily talked about a lot, just because we have 3-5-1 teams in the NFC. But these guys are still right there competing. These guys can, with the Philadelphia Eagles dropping a game in their division on Sunday, there's still a slim hope, or just a small hope, a small window of opportunity for the Dallas Cowboys to just get things going, get better on offense, to continue to be great on defense, to continue to be good on defense. And these guys can compete for their division. So, I think this is a very impressive win. I think there's still some things that they can clean up. I think the penalties have been an issue for this Dallas Cowboys team for years now, a couple of years, I want to say. A lot of penalty issues. There's a lot of penalties on Monday night. But at the end of the day, even with all those penalties, these guys were able to get back on the horse and get a very, very impressive win on Monday night on primetime with everybody watching. So 4-2 going into their bye. I know Dallas Cowboys fans aren't necessarily too mad about it. Looking at the rest of their schedule coming off of their bye, they have another test outside of the San Francisco 49ers, where a couple of weeks where they have to go to Philly and play their division rival. So I think that game's a 1 o'clock game. I'm not too sure why it's not on primetime. But sticking with this game, we have to talk about
the other games on primetime. That's why.
Oh, so other games on primetime. Yeah, that is right. So the Dallas game.
Yeah.
But we talk about Dak Prescott a lot. We talk about Justin Herbert a lot. But today we're gonna be talking about Justin Herbert just a tad bit more, man. Ali, talk to me, man. Who's this loss on? Who are we giving the blame to this time? Are we gonna give it to the coach? Are we gonna give it to the offensive coordinator?
No, this one, I think anybody that's not biased would just tell you that it's Justin Herbert's fault. I mean, there was a lot of uncharacteristic passes that he was missing. Keenan Allen was open on a couple of them where he made, a great route, and Justin Herbert flat out missed him open. A lot of, when they got to the end zone, they didn't capitalize as much as they should have. And then, of course, the icing on the cake for anyone else that wanted the Chargers to lose was the interception on the last play, throwing it to Quentin Johnson, and Stephon Gilmore picked it off. And this was just a game where Justin Herbert wasn't his best version. He was missing throws that he would make consistently. A lot of times, guys were open, and he wasn't making the plays that he was supposed to. But I'm not worried. I mean, Justin Herbert, if this is what his bad game looks like, then I have no issue acknowledging that this was a bad game from him, but means nothing more than just a Justin Herbert bad game. It doesn't spill anything else for the rest of the season. I mean, the guy's been playing lights out, and I can't just sit here and point fingers at him for every other game that they've lost. This was the game that was on him, and that's about it. I don't think I should acknowledge anything else. That's really it for him.
They sit here with a record of 2-3. 3 of their losses with the game on the line. He's had the ball in his hands, though. Are we going to acknowledge he's not clutch?
Dolphins game was not his fault, and Titans game was not his fault at all with those 2 losses. The Dolphins game, he literally got swallowed up by their defensive line almost immediately as soon as he snapped the ball. In Titans game, no one was open. I'm sorry. There's just nobody was wide open. This game was on him. That's fine. The other 2, it was just not on him.
But we're starting to see a trend here, are we not?
No,
we're starting to see a little bit of a trend where the game is on the line. All the
Raiders.
pressure is on it.
They won.
The Raiders, they won?
They won.
I'm not talking about this year. I'm talking about in the past. I'm bringing up all the little faults in the end of the game situations where it's meaningful games and he hasn't won.
But does he show up in those games?
Raiders.
He
was begging for a time on the sideline.
Okay, of course he would beg.
Jaguars.
Yeah, the Jaguars game was a bad, but let's be honest. Let's be fair here. There's a combination of a lot that went wrong in that Jaguars game.
Your defense gives you 5 interceptions, though.
The
play calling.
Justin Herbert. I think anybody is fair. Obviously knows Justin Herbert wasn't great in that game at all. I don't think he was great at all. But at the same time, the running game was downright terrible. Austin Eckler, not a between their tackles runner. Like that's a huge issue. The play calling was terrible as well.
We know what Austin Eckler has to do for this team. He's never been in between a runner. He's never been the in between.
But he's a running back though. That's the thing.
He's never been an in between runner. They got to
have
use
him.
You got to use him to your needs, and we know what Eckler does on the field.
But to utilize a running back, you need him to be able to run between the tackles. That's the whole point of having a great running game is that they got to be able to run between tackles. And Austin Eckler is not good at that. Like it's flat out just not a strength of his. And I feel like that's like Justin Herbert. I've never seen a game where I look at him and I think this guy isn't gonna put up points. Like I'm confident walking into any game, Justin Herbert is gonna put up points. This game right here against the Dallas Cowboys, like I said, uncharacteristic of him. I mean, he missed Keenan Allen wide open twice. He overthrew him twice. Like that's not a characteristic of Justin Herbert. I'm not like in any of these games that people want to point about Justin Herbert, they can never point out the fact that he has good games. He has good games. He literally statistically performs in these games. If Justin Herbert was having bad games, I'd be like, fair enough. The guy's downright not playing good in those games. But if he's playing good, then I don't know what the blame is for him. Like every single time.
There's a difference from being a good quarterback and being a great quarterback. Winning those late game situations, that's what it is. It's just being from a good quarterback. You can have a fantastic statistical day, 350 yards, 2 touchdowns, but at the end of the day, you have the ball the last 2 minutes and you can't, finish.
If your defense requires you to put up 35 points to win, like 30 plus points every single time to win,
it was a 2017 game. We talk about the Cowboys game. It's a 2017 game. It's a close game.
Everybody's aware, but I'm like, no, he had a bad game. That's really it. That's just about it. I don't know what narrative people want to point about Justin Herbert.
I ain't got no narrative with Herbert.
Hold on, let me step in really quickly. Let me step in.
For me,
give me a second. Give me a second,
These categories, he's always thrown into the top five. For me, it's just that's why he's
and rightfully so.
Every game is phenomenal for me, but I don't have him top 5. I have him outside of the top 5, but I just need him. When those big, meaningful games come up, when those late game situations where you need a win, you have to win. You have to show up for your team in a play. It can be playoffs or it can be end game situation, end of the season situation. For me, if he has that, he's up there. He can be a top 3 quarterback if he comes out of those games winning, and him.
But since this guy's been drafted, he has like the most comebacks and game-winning drives. Like this guy, like he puts stuff together. Like
I'm not gonna
I was waiting for you to say that.
Even in that game, even that game that you're mentioning, the Raiders game where he was begging for a tie, he had 400 yards, 3 touchdowns, and interception. The guy balls out when it matters. Like the guy plays. There's no question about this guy.
But he's also thrown 13 interceptions in the fourth quarter in one-score games.
They're also in the most one-score games as well. Like I hope you're aware that these guys. I don't think there's a single team and a single defense that's consistently being put in a one-score game than Justin Herbert and the Chargers. I really refuse to believe any team is in one-score games like these guys. Consistently, they're in one-score games because their defense's inability to make stops.
Can we sit here and confidently say that he's clutch? Can we sit here and say 100%. Justin Herbert is clutch?
100%. He's a clutch quarterback. There's no question about it.
The second quarterback on this list right now that has thrown more interceptions with one-score games since 2020 has, I think, like 5 interceptions. I don't know who it is, but the gap between 13 interceptions and 5 is a lot.
But the gap between how much his defense has given up points since he's been in the league and the next defense is monumental as well. So there's a reason why this guy's being put in one-score games is because his defense they don't do their job. Simple as that. His defense has been giving up the most points. Like I feel like people are just fighting air. Like they're putting something in their head saying Justin Herbert isn't clutch, and then now they're having confirmation bias. Well, look what he did against the Cowboys on Monday night. This proves this guy's not clutch. What?
We're seeing a trend though. We're seeing a pattern. This is now 3 consecutive games in one-score games where Justin Herbert has the ball in his hands and he's unable to capitalize on the opportunity. He's unable to march down the field and put points on the board.
Context exists for this though. Anybody that was watching that, first off, the Dolphins game, I don't even know how anybody watches that and thinks that was Justin Herbert's fault. First off, they put up 34 points, 33 points, whatever in that game, and they still lost. On that final drive, he got swallowed up multiple times by their defensive line. Their pass rush got to him every single time. The next one against the Titans, nobody's open. Rewatch the replay. Who is open on that play? Do people just want him to throw an interception just to say, well, at least he tried to make a play? There's nobody open on that. He has to take the 3 and out, and that's part of just being a quarterback. You have to sacrifice stats. Maybe there's a potential ability to get it to get a touchdown there, but there's nobody open. Nobody, even Keenan Allen. Nothing was available to him. This game 100% was on Justin Herbert's fault. And if this is a trend where Justin Herbert is consistently putting his team in a position where they cannot win games because of his late fourth quarter, like whatever play, I have no problem blaming him for that. But I don't see that. Like, I just don't see that narrative. It doesn't exist. This guy's an elite quarterback, as good as it gets, man.
The thing is, I just don't understand the excuses for Justin Herbert, man. It's on one hand, it's the coach Brandon Staley. On the other hand, it's the defense. On the third hand, it's the weapons that are not available at his disposal, whether it's Mike Williams, whether it's Keenan Allen, whether it's Austin Eckler. This was the healthiest they could have been offensively. And against the team that just got their chest kicked in, and the Dallas Cowboys, a game on the line, he wasn't able to capitalize on the opportunity. And like I said, this is now the 3rd time this season where ball's in his hands and he's not able to score and put points on the board and get his team a win. He's also a TJ Hawkinson catch away from being, 1-4. I just don't see it, man. I don't understand.
Would you have blamed him for that game as well?
The ball was in his hands in 4th and 1. Or why would it not?
I'm talking about the Vikings game.
It would be partial blame. It would be partial blame.
There you go. Like, I don't get that. Like, he had a monster game against the Vikings.
He had a monster game, but he also had the opportunity to ice the game. That's my thing. Like, quarterbacks understand that when they're in a situation where they have to win, backs against the wall, there's certain guys in the league that we trust. We can trust a guy like Patrick Mahomes. We can trust a guy like Joe Burrow to get the job done. But can we sit here and confidently say we can trust a guy like Justin Herbert to get the job done?
100%.
We cannot. We cannot.
I'm putting the ball in his hand 10 times out of 10 to give me that play.
For a guy to lead the league in interceptions since he's entered the league in the fourth quarter, 1-score games, that's very concerning. That's very alarming. And now that
they've been in the most one-score games entering the fourth quarter for a reason. Their defense is terrible. That's just how it is. There's a reason why. Why do you think he has the most comebacks in the fourth quarter and the most game-winning drives since he's been in the league? It goes hand in hand with each other. There's a reason for that. His defense doesn't do their job. His defense one time does his job, and now people think Justin Herbert, oh my God, this guy didn't show up. The guy always shows up.
Oh, because the thing is, people are sick and tired of the excuses around Justin Herbert. They're sick and tired of the excuses for Justin Herbert. That's what they're sick and tired of. And now they're capitalizing on the moment where this guy isn't at his greatest, where he isn't playing at his best. And they're pouncing on him and they're bashing him in the media because this is what they've been waiting for. Because for all these years now, we talked about Justin Herbert, we've heard about him, and we've seen what he's been able to do. We've seen the good, we've seen the bad, but everybody just brushes the bad under the rug. But when he's balling out, he's doing great. Everybody wants to hype him up. Everyone wants to talk about him. Like we just don't keep the same energy when Justin Herbert is doing great in comparison to when Justin Herbert is doing bad. And that's what people have a problem with.
The issue being is that Justin Herbert being bad literally almost never exists. It's a figment of our imagination. This Cowboys game was uncharacteristic of Justin Herbert. We don't see this often from Justin Herbert since he's been in the league. That's just a reality of who he is as a player. We don't see that often. That's why it's hard for people to nitpick, and they have to find things to blame Justin Herbert about because stuff like that doesn't exist for him. He doesn't have bad games often. That's just how it is.
It's good though because we can shelve this. We could put this conversation on the shelf because they have a very, very tough matchup. I believe it's this week against the Kansas City Chiefs. A week from now, we can have a different conversation about how he's playing. Maybe the loss is on him. Maybe it's
another
not.
3 touchdowns coming, man.
So, it is what it is at this point with Justin Herbert. I'm very, very glad that people are taking a victory lap on his performance on Monday night, just because of how many excuses have been in his favor in recent years. But it is what it is, man. As the season goes on, we'll see who Justin Herbert really is at this point. But aside from all of that, let's go ahead and talk about this Detroit Lions team, man. These guys are tied for the first in the NFC with a 5-1 record. I know it's very painful to say as a Minnesota Vikings fan. I know it hurts for you, Abdi, as well as a Packers fan. But these guys got it going, man. Once again, picking up another win on the road, playing the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You know, I don't know, man. Are we buying the 5-1 start for the Detroit Lions?
I am bought into them. As much as that's hard for me to admit, I'm 100% bought into this team as it stands. You know, they just went up against a really, really good defense in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. People need to understand that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense was giving up about 18 points per game on the season. And, you know, these guys went in there and they edged out a tough win against these guys. Jared Goff had a phenomenal game. I think he threw about 44 passes, and this guy was just lights out. You know, getting the ball to Amon-Ra, got the ball to Jameson Williams. Welcome back. He got the ball to his other guys. You know, this guy's been playing, you know, great all season long, and this is kind of what they wanted. You know, we always talked about him being a bridge quarterback, but you know, he's been playing exactly how Dan Campbell wants, and their offense coordinator has done a phenomenal job with this team. You know, and one key aspect of them that's not being talked about enough is their defense. Their defense really has been showing up. You know, and then of course we can't even rave enough about the offense. I mean, you know, they've scored 21, 31. 20, 34, 42, 20. You know, these guys have just been balling out. I'm 100% bottom because they have the talent on the offense and they have the talent on defense. You know, when you look at their offense, they have a great offensive line. You know, the run game is really, really good with David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, that combination. And then you have Jared Goff, who's been playing clean, great football. They have the wide receivers. They have Jameson Williams. They have Amon-Ra. They have Sam Laporta, who's been a welcome. He's been, arguably the best tight end in the entire league this season. Their defense, Aiden Hutchinson's been absolutely balling out. Their corners, their linebackers. I just love what I see from this team, and they play with a lot of passion. So I'm bought into this team. I think, when you look at them top to bottom, they can go toe to toe with just about any team in the NFC. So I am sold on them.
Beginning of the season, I told you guys I'm bought in with the Lions. I think, all these new additions that they added to the team, felt like they was going to ball out. Here they go, 5-1 right now. Dan Campbell got his team sitting 5-1, top of his division, tied for one of the best record in the NFL as of right now, with a couple other teams. Their offense is just flowing. St. Brown, they replaced Hawkinson with Laporta. Jameson Williamson, he finally came back from suspension, big game that he had. He had a big touchdown last week. He's going to be involved more in the offense. And Montgomery just looked like he's been on fire. So, everything's clicking for them. Defensive side of the ball, they got some players showing up. You got Hutchinson showing up. Brian, not too sure what his name is, Brian Birch or Brian Branch?
Brian Branch.
Brian Branch.
The rookie cornerback. He's been balling out for them too. So, Dan Campbell, he came with a plan. He's building off what he had last year. And it's just taking the next step higher, taking the next step above, and just keep on going. Jared Goff is playing as a phenomenal quarterback this year. He's hitting his targets. You really can't take much away from this team because they got one of the best offensive teams in the NFL. And now they got all the players back. St. Brown was out hurt for like a week and a half, 2 weeks. Williams suspended. Montgomery's dealing with another injury, but Gibbs is coming back. So let's see what Gibbs does. See, he gets the opportunity to start. See what he does, brings to the table for the team. I feel like it's a week for him to bounce out and just have that big week. But Dan Campbell got his team rolling. It's time to buy into this hype. They're sitting at 5-1. They're gonna win the division, I'm pretty sure, and they're gonna make some noise in the playoffs. They're gonna compete with some teams in the playoffs for sure.
I might sound like a hater when I say this, but I'm gonna sit here and say I'm not officially sold on this Detroit Lions team, man. I understand the 5-1 start is nice. A year ago, I was sitting here with a 5-1 start myself, but the conversation was a little bit different. A lot of people were saying, we're in so many one-score games, and what happens when they play a tough matchup and things of that nature. For the Detroit Lions, it's the same conversation. I think the conversation needs to be the same. I think that the talk around this team needs to be about the level of competition that they're playing. I think at the end of the day, the 5-1 start's amazing, but look at their strength of schedule to start off the year. Obviously, they get a very impressive win on Thursday night, week 1 of the NFL season against Kansas City. But as I would tell anybody, week 1 of the NFL season is the biggest lie in the world. Like that's just the biggest lie in the world. That doesn't necessarily determine, how great your season can be depending on how you start. A lot of teams can start off the season 1-0. and end up falling off the next 4 or 5 weeks. I mean, we saw the Bears do when they beat the Niners last year. They ended up, competing for a top pick in the draft. And so for this Detroit Lions team, man, obviously their one loss comes against your Seattle Seahawks, Big H, where, it was a shootout, 37-31, very high scoring game. That's a matchup that I'm looking at. I'm looking at a matchup like that where they got to go toe to toe with a team that's just as good as them on offense and just as good as them on defense. And so they have wins against Atlanta, they have wins against Green Bay, Carolina, Tampa Bay, but those really aren't teams that are great offensive teams. They're not; those teams aren't great offensively. And so the one thing that I'm looking forward to for this Detroit Lions team is to play a team that's great, just as good as them offensively and just as good as them defensively. Because I feel like if these guys continue to get tested based on the rest of the schedule for them, then I can sit here and confidently say, I'm bought into this team. But for people to dismiss my team in their start last year and to come into this year and say, well, the Detroit Lions are playing great football and I'm bought into this hype and things of that nature, I think that's just not fair to say. Now looking at the rest of their schedule for these next couple of weeks, they have the Baltimore Ravens on the road. I think that's going to be a very interesting test. It could be a very good matchup. It's going to be a great game. They play the Las Vegas Raiders. I expect a win over there. Then they go into their bye. The rest of their schedule, it's not really tough at all. They play the Chargers on the road, the Bears, the Packers, the Saints, the Bears again, Denver. They have us twice, and they also play the Dallas Cowboys. And so, we're not really going to see this team get tested just based on their strength of schedule. And I know it's not fair to use that argument against them, but at the end of the day, it is what it is, because once you get into the playoffs, it's going to be a whole different ball game. The playing field is not going to be even. You're going to be playing teams that are either just as good as you or even better than you. And so, for right now, I think the Detroit Lions are playing great football. Don't get me wrong. I think offensively they have it rolling with all of their weapons. Jared Goff is playing more than just a bridge quarterback. I think that he's the right guy for this system. A year ago, I was calling for this team to draft a quarterback in this last draft and to move off from a guy like Jared Goff because I didn't believe in the season he had last year, and he's proven me wrong so far 6 weeks in. And now with all of these added playmakers, with Amon-Ra St. Brown doing well, with David Montgomery being the lead back and Jahmyr Gibbs coming back into the fold with coming off his injury, the sky's the limit for this team. But I'm just very interested in seeing how these guys can match up with like a top team in the NFC or just a top team in the NFL as a whole. When you play the Niners, what happens when they play the Philadelphia Eagles? The Dallas Cowboys, you play Kansas City again, things of that nature. So, I think it's a great start for the Detroit Lions. They haven't had this much success in a very, very long time. They're going to end up winning the division by a landslide, pretty similar to how we won it last year. But come playoff time, we might be having a different conversation about these guys now. We might be saying, we might have overhyped them a little too much, coming into this year. But, for right now, I do have to give them credit that they're playing amazing football. They're by far and away the best team in this division, and they're well-deserved to be considered a top team in the NFC with their 5-1 start. But aside from all that, let's go ahead and move on to our very first NFL start bench cut edition of the NFL season. And I was thinking about how we should do this. Are we going to base it off of just overall talent or just overall, or are we just going to base it on this season? I think it would be a much better conversation if we just base it on just so far what we've been seeing in this season alone. We'll go ahead and start off with the quarterbacks. The first 3 quarterbacks I have on my list: start bench cut, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Jalen Hurts.
Start Josh Allen, bench Jalen Hurts, cut Joe Burrow.
Start Josh Allen, bench Jalen Hurts, cut Joe Burrow.
I think we can all agree on this one. I'm probably going to start Josh Allen, bench Jalen Hurts, and cut Joe Burrow. This one could be a very interesting one. Tua, Trevor Lawrence, and Justin Herbert.
Start Tua, bench Justin Herbert, cut Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, start Tua, bench Herb, cut Lawrence. Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, I don't know about all that one. Start Tua, bench Trevor Lawrence, and cut Justin Herbert. I think Justin Herbert and Trevor Lawrence, it's not that far off of what they've been producing so far this season, but could go either way. I
don't know. I think the Jags' offense has been a lot more inconsistent compared to the Chargers' offense. When you look at their offense, I mean, yes, they've been plagued by bad play, maybe by their wide receivers, but even Trevor Lawrence himself, I feel like just his overall one, like consistency and volume in that offense hasn't been, has been exactly what we've anticipated. Their offense, I don't think, has been as explosive as we wanted it to be.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think Trevor Lawrence he hasn't on the stats wise, it hasn't been a lot of big games for him. I felt like they've been digging through the mud. It's been a little slow for them, but I feel like he's gonna get going soon. But it's been a little inconsistent at the start of the season. Towards Herbert, where he's been obviously statistical wise, he's been hooping, but late game situations, he ain't there sometimes. So yeah,
You guys aren't buying their little 3-game win streak they got going on, where they beat the Falcons, Buffalo, and the Colts.
I'm buying it.
They've been better offensively. They've scored 20 points in all 3 of those games, 23 plus.
Yeah, I think now they're getting into the motion of getting much better. I feel like Christian Kirk is getting involved a lot more into the offense now these last couple of weeks, and that team been hooping too. So I feel like the offense is heading right into the right direction. But Trevor Lawrence on himself, I don't think he's been that quarterback that 350 yards every game where he's leading that offense in charge. Etienne, the last couple of weeks, he's been cooking.
That's fair. Let's go ahead and move on to the running backs. Travis Etienne, Breece Hall, and Kenneth Walker.
Oof. Start Travis Etienne. Bench Breece Hall. Cut Kenneth Walker.
Starting Kenneth Walker, 8 touchdowns this season so far. Benching Breece Hall and cutting Etienne.
Starting Travis Etienne, benching Kenneth Walker, and cutting Breece Hall. I just feel like we need to see more out of Breece Hall, but I think it's fair to say that I'm not too sure why Big H, obviously it's biased for Big H to go with Kenneth Walker, but I think Travis Etienne has been picking it up as of late. But argument can go either way.
I feel like every single week Kenneth Walker played, he's been showing up. He's been putting touchdowns on the board.
I don't think Kenneth Walker's efficiency has really just been there. He hasn't even. I don't think he's cracked 100 yards yet on the ground.
He hasn't. He's been in the 70 to 80 yards a game area, but the touchdowns though, he's scoring touchdowns like
this 64, 43, 97, okay, 79, and then 62. So in terms of just like his ground efficiency, it's like 4.1 yards per carry versus, obviously Etienne, especially these last 2 weeks, he's looked unbelievable. And then Breece Hall, it's been more so just, as the season has gone by, he's just starting to pick up more and more explosive plays. So I don't know. I don't think like the big play effect has been there for Kenneth Walker this season. He's just more so just been a battering ram at the goal line.
The thing is, I just think Breece Hall. I think Breece Hall will eventually pick it up as his snaps go up and as he gets his legs back from under him. Obviously, he got the training wheels off, but I just have to see a little bit more. That's just my whole entire argument.
Like Breece Hall, I think he has 426 rushing yards on 66 carries, which is 6.4 yards per carry, which is kind of ridiculous. So a
lot of his big plays though. He loves them every game.
He has the ability to make a big play, man.
Yeah, every game you go get that 70, 80-yard touchdown from him. That's the crazy thing.
Yeah, you can expect an outburst from a big. You can expect a big play a game from a guy like Breece Hall. But let's go ahead and move on to the next one. Josh Jacobs, Austin Eckler, and Alvin Kamara.
Holy, these guys have just been fucking mid.
Kamara, ever since he came back, he's been hooping. I ain't gonna lie.
I'm gonna start Alvin Kamara. I'm gonna bench Josh Jacobs. I'm gonna cut Austin Eckler.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with Abdi on that. I'm gonna go Kamara, Jacobs, and Eckler. Just because Eckler first game back the other day against the Cowboys, he hasn't really played much. His first game that he played, he hooped. I ain't gonna lie, he had like 3 touchdowns, 100-something yards. But ever since the injury, first game back against the Cowboys, he really didn't do much. But I'm gonna go with Abdi with that one. I feel like Eckler healthy. If he played all the games this year, he would have been number 1.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna stick with that one too. Probably just start Alvin Kamara and then bench Jacobs and cut Eckler.
But it's not because I've been a fan of Alvin Kamara. It's clearly has lost the explosiveness. The guy's averaging 3.8 yards per carry. He's just been a great receiving back. Of course this season, but in terms of just his rushing ability, it just hasn't been there. And Josh Jacobs, he hasn't been able to replicate what he did last year. He's starting to pick it up a bit, but it hasn't just. I really think Austin Eckler is head and shoulders the best running back in this entire group. When he's able to be healthy and he's on the field.
Yeah.
But
That first game showed it. He was cooking.
Looked amazing.
I'm not really buying it for not Austin. Okay, I'm not really buying it for Alvin Kamara, man. I think for majority of his points,
Catches, right?
It's just catches, bro. It's like he's getting his first game back. He got 14 targets, 13 catches for 33 yards. Like that's just not efficient, bro. Like it's not really. You're not really getting much out of that. Like for fantasy, is good. You're getting 13 catches and 33 yards. Like he's getting more. All of his stuff is just based on little catches here and there. He just hasn't really been an effective runner. But I don't know, man. For so far in this season, he's been better. I guess he's come back from his suspension. But let's go ahead and move on from the running backs. I think we have an interesting conversation that could be held with these wide receivers. But let's go ahead and talk about it. CeeDee Lamb, Calvin Ridley, and Keenan Allen.
Start Keenan. Between these two has been a bit tough. I'm gonna bench CeeDee, and I'm gonna cut Ridley.
This year, yeah, I'm starting Keenan, benching CeeDee, cutting Ridley. Ridley had a good start to the season. I think that first game, and then it kind of went slow the next three games, and then that fifth game, he kind of picked it up, but it's still been slow for him. CeeDee has been slow this year too. I ain't gonna lie. There's been a couple weeks that he hasn't showed up, but there's been some good weeks for him as well. But Keenan Allen, man, that guy, one of the best route runners in the league. It's just beautiful to see him run his routes. He can get open whenever he wants. That's crazy. At this age,
yeah.
He's having his best career. He's having his best year at this age. And he's on pace for. If he keeps this going, I think it was 1,600, 1,700 yards. So, that's pretty crazy.
He's had a great start to the season. I agree with you guys on that. Start Keenan, bench CeeDee, and cut Ridley. But the conversation surrounding CeeDee Lamb as of late has been whether or not he can be a true wide receiver one in the NFL. I think who was it? Richard Sherman that brought up this conversation. What do you guys think? You guys think CeeDee Lamb could be a wide receiver one on any franchise, or does he need to be complimented to a wide receiver one?
I don't know. I feel like that conversation just starts, sprouting when Dak Prescott has a bad game, and you look at CeeDee Lamb's stats, and it's just like, oh, he hasn't shown up. I do believe in CeeDee Lamb's ability to be a number one wide receiver. I do think though people have jumped the gun in terms of. I liked what he said about people have been grouping him with. Those certain guys, he shouldn't be put in that category of the A.J. Browns, the Stephon Diggs, the Cooper Kupps, the Jamar Chase, Devontae Adams, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase type of guys. I think people kind of just jump the gun and put him in that category. And it got me thinking it feels like he's more of a Terry McLaurin type of wide receiver. And I do believe both of them have the ability to be a wide receiver one, especially Terry McLaurin considering his quarterback situation. But I don't think CeeDee Lamb should be considered in that same upper echelon of wide receiver ones, with those guys. Yeah, I don't think he's proven himself enough to be included in that category of those guys. I don't think he's that level of player yet.
You think he's closer to guys like Terry McLaurin?
I think you might be tripping on that, bro. I ain't gonna lie. He had 1,400 yards and 9 touchdowns last year. You really grouping that with receiver twos?
I know who's he supposed to be grouped with then? Because he's not with those guys.
He's a receiver one easily. What's the difference? If AJ Brown gets you 1,300 yards and CeeDee gets you 1,400 yards, are you grouping AJ Brown with the receiver ones? Or are you
AJ Brown's gonna get you 1,400 yards and he got 1,400 yards and
12 touchdowns?
And he's sharing that volume with who? Devontae Smith, who got 1,300 yards himself.
So we take that away from CeeDee. We take that away from
CeeDee. But come on, bro.
1,409 touchdowns. We're not grouping him with receiver twos.
We're not grouping him with receiver ones.
He's in the group with them 100%.
Nah, he's not with AJ Brown.
He's 100%.
I'm not putting CeeDee Lamb in the same sentence as Stephon Diggs and those guys. This is crazy. He does not deserve that.
I think that's another guy. CeeDee had better stats than Diggs last year. That's another guy. Again.
I don't think he did actually.
I got to double check that. Give me a second. Hold on.
You can go ahead and fact check that, but you're pretty much saying that he's closer to guys like, Tyler Lockett and Chris Godwin.
No, I think he's
Scary Terry.
He's because Scary Terry is very underrated to me. I feel like Scary Terry is if he had he has not had he's not been put in these situations in these other wide receivers. But I feel like CeeDee Lamb is close.
They both had 1,400 last year, but Diggs had 2 more touchdowns. What's the difference in that? It's right
consistency though. He's been doing that though. Diggs has
Okay,
been doing that.
CD's pretty young, baby. Yeah, obviously, Diggs is 8 years into his career.
Jamar Chase has been doing it for 2 years now. Justin Jefferson, we're not talking about Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill, the whole group of guys. Like I feel like
I've been a 1,000-yard receiver ever since he came into the league, and every year it's been getting better.
But it's never been at the same level. Like it's never. What this is his first year cracking 1,400.
I think it's 30 into the career, cracked 1,300, 1,400.
Yeah, he doesn't deserve to get put
do,
in that category.
do I have to bring up Diggs' first 3 years? He wasn't cracking 1,200. He was.
Yeah, but we're talking about them as wide receiver ones now as it stands.
That's wide receiver one status right there. If you tell me 1,400 does not
should not be seen in that light yet. Like he doesn't.
Why not?
Deserve.
What does he have to do to be seen in that light?
Have another monster year. Simple as that.
This year's not over yet, though.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, we can't say that after he had one monster.
Like he's like in the Calvin Ridley group of wide receivers. That's who he is.
Like Calvin Ridley, T. Higgins, Jalen Waddle. You put him in that type of category?
I think Calvin Ridley is a little bit better than those guys. I think that's like for me. Like I think there's like the wide receiver one, the elite wide receiver ones, and then there's like the tier 2 of wide receiver ones, which is like the CDs, the Terry McLaurin and the Calvin Ridleys. I think Terry McLaurin's in that category just because he hasn't had the fair play of quarterback and he's able to still perform. But there's like a tier 1 of like wide receiver one, and then the wide receiver 2s kind of come in where the Jalen Waddles, Devontae Smith, the T Higgins, those type of guys. And then after, I lied. I forgot. Keenan Allen is in the same group as CeeDee Lamb. That's
you have him, but you have him as a back end tier 1, then basically.
Who?
CeeDee.
Basically, yeah.
Okay then.
But I don't think he's in that same class as those guys. Like I just don't.
I mean, I don't think he's in the same class as JJ, Devontae, Jefferson. I said JJ, Jamar Chase and Tyreek
and Stephon Diggs.
I'm messing with Stephon. I'm gonna put him in that class with Tyreek and them. I think he's in the class with him and AJ.
I don't know, man. I think CeeDee can be right up there with those guys, bro.
He can. He's not. He not is right now. Not now as it stands. I don't believe so.
Well, I guess we're just gonna have to revisit this conversation as the season goes at the end of the season. This one should be an interesting one though. Start, bench, cut. T. Higgins, Jalen Waddle, and Devontae Smith. I'm
gonna start Devontae Smith. I'm gonna bench Jalen Waddle. I'm gonna cut T. Higgins. I think between those first 2 guys, I don't think they've had magnificent seasons as like it's gone by. Like I don't think Jalen Waddle, like they've had like their weeks, and then like especially these last 2 weeks for Jalen Waddle, which is ironic because these last 2 weeks for Devontae Smith haven't been good at all. Like I think they've just like Devontae Smith is kind of just like, I don't know, when AJ Brown started crying about targets, like his went away magically, and so went all the way to AJ Brown. But I think for the most part, all 3 of these guys, when all healthy, they're right around the same categories to me. I just have Devontae Smith a little bit ahead in terms of where I have them. I think they're just like, if they're all like wherever they're ranked 10, 11, 12, 13, or not in 10, 11, wherever they're ranked, they're right next to each other for me. But as the season is, I think I'll have Devontae Smith as my number 1.
Let's go ahead and base this question, instead of basing it on the regular season. Let's go ahead and base it just overall. That's where the discussion can get very, very interesting.
Start.
Would your answer change?
No, it'd stay the same. Start Devontae Smith, bench Jalen Waddle, cut T. Higgins.
Start T. Higgins, bench Waddle, cut Smith.
Definitely starting Jalen Waddle, cutting T. Higgins, not cutting T. Higgins. I'm starting Jalen Waddle. I'm benching T. Higgins, and then I'm cutting Devontae Smith. I think out of the 3, by far and away, the conversation really should be just between Jalen Waddle and T. Higgins. Devontae Smith is great. I think he's good. Don't get me wrong, but I think it's a different level of
I think Devontae is more complete out of any of these 3. Between these 3, I think Devontae Smith is the most complete wide receiver out of these 3. I think when you ask him about his route running, the guy's great at doing that. Contested catch ability, he's great at doing that. You want him to win a jump ball, he's going to do that. Short routes, intermediate routes, you want him to go long, he's able to do that. I think in terms of completeness, I think Devontae Smith's the best out of this group.
Who do you think has the biggest big play ability out of the three.
Right, the fastest of the guys. I mean, that's Jalen Waddle for sure. But
Waddle on that offense has the biggest big playability.
just in terms of his ability to take a play short, and I mean, he's like another Tyreek Hill on that team for them. You know, you throw him short and he's able to go long. And then of course T Higgins, when you wanted to have a big catch, he's able to do that because of course of his height advantage. He's one of the best.
To me, he's like that Brandon Marshall type receiver. You know, where those 3rd and 4 comes, those 3rd and 5 comes, he's gonna get those 5 yards regardless. You can pass him the ball, especially in the end zone too. When he gets to the end zone, those 5-yard outs, those 7-yard outs, he's one of those Brandon Marshall type receivers. That's why I kind of like him. You know, big body type guy, slant routes, out routes, middle. He can do everything for me. So T Higgins number 1. I feel like Waddle.
Waddle's by far and away the best out of these 3 guys, bro.
Waddle.
You look at the numbers. Putting up he put up 1,300 yards and 8 touchdowns last year, playing alongside Tyreek Hill, by the way, who was on pace for 2,000 yards. I think he finished off the season with like 17.
What did Higgins pull with last year? I feel like it was 1,100 or something. I know he missed a couple games too.
Yeah, he put up last year. It was 1,000 yards and 7 touchdowns. Devontae Smith had 1,100 yards and 7 touchdowns last year. For T Higgins, is back-to-back 1K yards for him. Touchdowns, I believe he had 7 and 6, 6 and 7 so far. This year's he only has 2, but Waddle for me, I think is just he's just by far in a way he's probably by far the most complete receiver out of these 3 guys. I think.
Hell nah. What? That's crazy. That's Devontae Smith, man.
Nah,
Y'all tweaking because Devontae's skinny and shit, man. Y'all sleeping on him, man. When you look at Devontae, man, there's nothing this guy cannot do. I'm talking about like I'd never seen a skinny dude like this be able to make contested catches consistently like Devontae. Jay Waddle doesn't have that in his back. He cannot jump over. Devontae Smith definitely can. You want a long pass? Like I think back to that game against the Commanders last year. Some of those catches Devontae Smith was making was just like I made no sense to me. That's crazy. Those catches that he was making over the shoulder and he was tracking the ball and there's another one where he mossed it over the guy. I think at this my thing is I don't know if I see T Higgins as a out and out number 1 option just because of the speed aspect for me. That's the one thing that when I look at T Higgins is
those weeks Jamar Chase was out, right? That man was cooking as a number 1.
If I put T Higgins for example, if you send T Higgins to the Panthers, right? How satisfied do you guys think they feel with him as their wide receiver 1? Not discounting Adam Thielen's performance, right? I'm talking about how would a team feel signing T Higgins as their de facto wide receiver 1? Do you believe T Higgins can be in that category as those guys that we mentioned? Not obviously as he is now, but as it goes on, down the line, do you think T Higgins could be a bona fide wide receiver 1 like those top tier guys?
I think he could be a wide receiver 1. 100%.
I don't know.
What?
I seen him 6 games without Jamar Chase, and him and Joe Burrow had this connection last year where they were just every game they were coming out just cooking. They were just eating that 5-6 game Jamar Chase was out. So if he does get that opportunity on another team, depending on what team it is, maybe the Giants, maybe the Panthers, whoever it is, I feel like he's gonna eat. I feel like he can produce number 1. I feel like he can give you 1,300 yards in the season if he gets those targets, and I think he could be a 10 to 12 touchdown guy as the number 1 guy.
That's exactly what I was going to say. He could probably finish somewhere around 1,300 yards a season, but those touchdowns are going to go up massively because he's getting right now 6 and 7 playing alongside guys like Jamar Chase, and then obviously you have Joe Mixon in the backfield. But if he's just the alpha number wide receiver 1 on the Carolina Panthers, that's 11, 12, 13 touchdowns guaranteed just because of his frame and his ability to go up and get jump balls from the quarterback. So I think the Panthers would be pretty comfortable with T Higgins as their wide receiver 1. I mean, they don't necessarily have a wide receiver 1 right now, and he'd be the best one on the market. But if you were to pull all 3 on the market, Jalen Waddle, T Higgins, and Devontae Smith, I guarantee you they're all going with Jalen Waddle as their wide receiver 1.
No, they're going with Devontae Smith, man.
They would legit not even think twice about taking a guy like Jalen Waddle, man. But aside from all that, let's go ahead and move on to our last trio of the night. We have Garrett Wilson, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Chris Olave.
Oof. I'm going to start I'm gonna start Garrett Wilson. I'm gonna bench Amon-Ra. I'm gonna cut Chris Olave.
I'm starting St. Brown, benching Wilson. I'm cutting Olave.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and start Garrett Wilson. Bench Amon-Ra St. Brown. I'm going to go ahead and cut Chris Olave. I think it's really close between Garrett Wilson and Amon-Ra St. Brown, though. Olave could be a lot better, though, but his quarterback situation is just
Yeah, he has.
mention is.
I told you about Derek Carr. Right?
He has a bunch of just air yards, and he hasn't been able to really be able to capitalize on, the quarterback situation.
They're sending him on Ross that he's not even supposed to run.
But like when I look at this, group, Olave is like far and away the best vertical threat out of all these guys. If you want a big play down the line, Olave is able to do that almost every time. Look at short yardage, of course. That's Amon-Ra's bread and butter. Like on these short routes, he's able to do a lot. His versatility. And then Garrett Wilson, to me, the guy's just a juke. Like he's able, just a human joystick. He's a great route runner. He's able to break tackles. He's able to get open. He's very shifty as a wide receiver. I love his. He does remind me of a lot of Devontae Adams, of course, in terms of his ability to just separate between guys. And I like that a little bit more. But Amon-Ra is he's just like that consistent safety blanket, for Jared Goff. Like if Jared Goff is looking somewhere, he's gonna look at Amon-Ra every time. And so I think that type of wide receiver is like invaluable to an offense. So it's kind of just preference between those two at that point. I do think I like Garrett Wilson more as like an alpha wide receiver one versus Amon-Ra, where I feel a little bit more comfortable when I can put him in the slot and he's gonna win his matchup and be that security blanket for me every time.
I think just the one thing that's missing from Amon-Ra's game right now is just his big playability. I think that's just the one thing that he could be a little bit better on. Aside from all that wraps up our first NFL Start Bench Cut edition of the year. And now we'll go ahead and move on to the last thing on the agenda today, which will be the NFL Week 7 Pick'em predictions. As always, I'll read out the matchups. Well, you guys will go ahead and make your predictions. And we go ahead and start off with the Thursday night football game between the Jacksonville Jaguars going on the road to play the New Orleans Saints.
This is going to be at the Saints Stadium.
Yeah, Saints will be at home in this one. They're also favored to win this game.
I'll go with the Jaguars.
I got the Jags.
Give me the Saints here. Trevor Lawrence is a little bit banged up. Now we go ahead and move on to the 10 o'clock games. We have no London games, no Germany games this week. Thank God. We have the Las Vegas Raiders going up against the Chicago Bears.
Give me the Raiders.
I got the Raiders.
I'll go ahead and take the Raiders. This one could be ugly. No Justin Fields and no Jimmy Garoppolo. Next, we have the Cleveland Browns going up against the Indianapolis Colts.
Give me the Browns.
I think the Browns defense is going to suffocate Minshew, so I got the Browns.
Even with no Deshaun Watson, you guys are still going Cleveland?
Pretty confident in that defense.
I'll go ahead and take Cleveland.
Wasn't that bad against the Niners.
He wasn't good either.
He wasn't good either, but, there's some crucial plays that he came up with. Cooper had a day.
That's fair. I'll go ahead and go Cleveland as well. Next, we have the Buffalo Bills going on the road to play the New England Patriots. We're all going Buffalo here.
Yeah, I'm going the Bills.
Next, we have the Washington Commanders going on the road to play the New York Giants. Divisional matchup.
Where is this at? The Giants, right?
It's in New York.
Cursed MetLife Stadium. I'm gonna go with the Giants in this one.
I'm gonna take the Commanders.
I'm gonna take the Commanders as well. Next, we have another divisional matchup between the Atlanta Falcons going on the road to play the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Give me the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
You get the Falcons.
Go ahead and give me the Bucs. I'm hoping this is the week they bench Desmond Ridder. Next, we have an interesting matchup. As I talked about a little bit earlier, we have the Detroit Lions going on the road to play the Baltimore Ravens.
Give me the Detroit Lions.
I'm gonna rock with my boy Lamar Jackson. Trust.
I like this. This might be the first tough test for the Detroit Lions, and I like the Baltimore Ravens in this one, so I'm gonna go ahead and go Ravens. Now we move on to the 1 o'clock slated games. We have the Pittsburgh Steelers going on the road to play the Los Angeles Rams.
Give me the Rams in this one.
Give me the Rams. Kieran Williams is out though. Whew. Well,
I don't think it makes much of a difference.
I'm gonna go with the Steelers.
You going Steelers?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the Steelers. They're coming off their bye week and they're pretty well rested. I don't know, man.
Steelers. Going Steelers. Let's go ahead and move on to the next game. We have the Arizona Cardinals going up against the Seattle Seahawks in Seattle.
I'll go with the Seahawks in this one.
Get right week, man. Offense got to get going. So, I got my Seahawks, baby.
Going Seattle. Abdi, your team is coming off their bye week, playing the worst team in the league. We have the Green Bay Packers going up against the Denver Broncos.
So, get right week coming up to bye. I'm going with the Packers in this one.
Denver Broncos, man, they punch you back, Teams, they get right against them. They test some new things, be like, let's see what our offense can do. I feel like the Packers offense is going to come out. They're going to explode on them, so I got the Packers.
Is Aaron Jones playing this week?
He is.
Okay.
He was limited again today, though.
He should be good.
Yeah, it's a Wednesday, The star shouldn't be practicing too crazy on Wednesday. Just a fantasy question. I'm going to go ahead and go Green Bay, but it would be hilarious to see the Denver Broncos win this one. Next, we go ahead and move on to another interesting matchup. We have the Los Angeles Chargers coming off their Monday Night Football loss to play a divisional rival in the Kansas City Chiefs in Kansas City.
I don't think the Chiefs have been good enough for me, so I'm gonna be interesting in this one. I'm gonna go with the Chargers.
Hell nah. Chargers sold me last week, man. Another primetime game. I am not going. Hell nah. Mahomes. That's it.
Yeah, I'm going Kansas City in this one. Sunday night, we finally get an interesting game. Out of 6 weeks into the season, we haven't had any interesting games on primetime. Now we got a very, very good one. We got the Miami Dolphins going on the road to play the Philadelphia Eagles. Another test for Tua and the boys. It's a good one, man. I'm excited to watch this one. I can't lie.
Eagles bounce back. Give me the Eagles.
Nah, Tyreek Hill gonna kick them corners. I'm sorry. I'm going with the Dolphins, but after I seen last week, the Eagles, it's slowly, like, you could tell, like,
they're not that same team, man. I told y'all after that win against Tampa, they're still not that same team.
Come on, the defense, that front seven is nice, but the secondary to me is just in shambles.
I'm gonna go ahead and pick the Dolphins in this one. I think the Miami Dolphins getting embarrassed by Buffalo has really got this team, awake again. And so it's going to be a tough matchup. They do got to go out there and prove themselves, and I think they do in this one on the road in very convincing fashion. But now we have a Monday Night Football game. My team will be playing in this game, and I will not be watching. But we have the 49ers going on the road playing the Minnesota Vikings. We're all going Niners in this one. CMC's health and Deebo Samuel's health don't concern you guys? It doesn't change your answer?
You guys are missing Justin Jefferson. That's really about it.
I'm trying to see Purdy get tested again. I ain't gonna lie. But I'll pick the Niners.
This ain't the team to be getting tested against, man. He might have himself a nice little field day. This is definitely a get right game for the Niners, though. That's how I look at it. Coming off a tough loss against Cleveland, even without CMC, even without Deebo, they might as well just rest those guys because they have a tougher matchup the following week. Yeah, they might just kill us. If DeAndre Swift could rush for 180 yards on us, I can only imagine what a guy like Jordan Mason can do. But that pretty much wraps up Week 7. We have a lot of teams on bye, though. We have the Carolina Panthers on bye. We have the Bengals on bye, the Cowboys on bye, Texans, Jets, and Titans. For fantasy players, of course, as ourselves, we have a lot of tough fantasy lineup choices to make with all these teams on bye. And it's weird because we have 6 teams on bye this week. We have no teams on bye the next week.
But it makes no sense.
It's just the way Roger Goodell scheduled this season. But let me go ahead and talk about the weekly prediction rankings. I know last week I had a little problem with the record and everything like that, but I finally got it down. But so Week 6, I led the way this week with a 12-3 record. Big Issue weren't behind me at all. It was Abdi that was behind me with 11-4 record, and Big Issue finished with a 9-6 record. And now our totals week by week, Abdi is still comfortably in first place with a record of 66-27. Big H, your record is 59-34. And I'm right behind you with a record of 58-35. So, Abdi does have a little bit of a cushion on us, but with this week can definitely sway some things.
Bold picks this week.
He's no fun. He don't take no gambles. He takes. No
I just literally took 3 this week. What?
Ooh.
The Chargers won. I took.
Chargers one's a risk.
Yeah, that's a huge risk. Chargers.
That's a huge gamble. I can't lie.
Is. I ain't gonna lie.
That's a huge gamble. But
I'm taking the Eagles and Dolphins one is another. It's not really a gamble, but it's a 50-50.
It's a toss up though. Yeah, it's a toss up.
50-50.
Either way, though,
And the Lions and the Ravens as well. There's another one.
It's a very, very long season. You got about a 7-8 game cushion on both of us, but of course, we'll find out our winner week 18 of the NFL season. But with that being said, any final words before we sign off here, fellas?
And we might be America's game of the week, bruh. Just make sure you tuned in.
I just got a brain fart. Who's playing Thursday again?
Saints and Jags.
Saints and Jags. It's not an interesting primetime game. I don't think any of us will be tuning in.
I got AK-41, man. 25 fantasy points. Let's get it.
All right. Looking forward to another week of football. Of course, the NBA season is right around the corner, and literally less than a week from today, we're watching NBA basketball. Finally, the regular season will kick off, and of course, in our next episode, we'll be talking about just strictly hoops. Enough of this football shit. But let's go ahead and close out this episode here. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. We really appreciate your love and support. We'd greatly appreciate it if you like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel at New Media Podcast. And for those of you that are watching us on YouTube, all of our social media handles will be at the end of this video. And if you're listening to us on Apple and Spotify, if you go to our Instagram page at New Media Podcast, you'll be able to navigate yourself to all of our social media handles there. So once again, thank you so much for tuning in. And of course, we'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.
Record a new hit, then we making us a film. Wouldn't sign a deal if I got a couple mil. Been in the lab, now they throwing out deals. Being out late now, that's overkill.